The West Island, the suburbs of Montreal. It may be clear now that I have a slight obsession about the history of this place. Let's continue this obsession, shall we? This is the Valois Country Club, built by the Valois Citizens Association back in 1922. They were the group of people that make sure that Valois was being run correctly. They needed a new clubhouse. So why not build it on the water? It's not like there wasn't tons of land available. This must have been a pretty happening place. It hosted wedding receptions, concerts, dances, drama clubs, and it was probably the only place at that time where you can go see real moving pictures, because everything else was a farm. The more I was learning about this place, I realized that these pictures, though there were many of them, weren't properly representing this club. It's just facts. It's just information about this place. And it's very cold. It's as if I've seen the greatest hits of this Valois Country Club. I kept thinking, I need more. And I know what you're saying. You need more too. And I got your back. So I called Michael. He's a local painter, and he's painting a series on Valois. I asked him to paint a unique perspective of the Valois Country Club, something that I see in my head, something that incorporates elements from the articles and the pictures that I've seen, like my own mixed tape called the Valois Country Club. The question is first of all, I guess, how do you choose a perspective?
Well, this is kind of a different one, so I think we're into uncharted territory here, right?
Yes, Spock. But Michael and I couldn't do this alone. We were still missing an element. The element of warmth. The element of realism. And that missing element
Hello.
was Bill Gordon.
It's as clear in my mind as when I was 10 years old. It was the meeting place, there's no question. I used to have babysitters take me there, and stay with me the day.
So the Valois Country Club was built on stilts 6 feet above Lac St. Louis, stretching out at least 50 feet into the bay.
The building was built on stone and full of rocks, and the building was supported on that.
According to Bill, it was a good location because the water was only 4 feet deep. Oh, inside, was it just one big open space?
Yeah, almost like a gymnasium,
Yeah.
I went to my first movie there, and it was Shirley Temple. I can still remember it.
When animals crack in my soup.
What's great about the pictures that are available is that you can actually see how the country club went through some changes. They never expanded the main room, that was there from the beginning. But outside, they expanded the sides.
15 feet wide and the length of the building, so we swam from that boardwalk into the water.
And Bill helped fill in the gaps of information that was not shown. Like here.
Boats would be underneath, all the woodies, they parked underneath there.
And over here.
Under that walkway were the changing rooms. You could rent a locker or they had public ones.
And why were there changing rooms, you ask? Because at that time, you got a fine if you weren't dressed decently walking on the road, or actually be put in jail.
So I was thinking this. What I found always weird about the pictures, it always seems so far away. Maybe if we make this really large here, it's almost like you feel like
you're right up next to
walking
it.
in.
So as much as I was learning about this place and how great it was, I kept thinking, why Valois? Why not Verdun or Lachine? Places that were more populated, more developed in those days. Why Valois for the 3 farmers that were here? Why? Well, there were some elements pointing in our favor here. If you haven't noticed, it's called Valois Bay because it's an actual bay. Now I'm gonna start easy. Which means that the waters are calm, there isn't as much wind, it's probably shallow, and it's not too far off from downtown. So let's look at how people would get there. Well, they had that covered too. Look how close the tracks go to the bay. It's like 100 feet away from the shoreline. And there was a train station right at the center of the bay. So why wouldn't they build a pier right here? Transportation was great, location's great, calm waters of Valois Bay, but this stuff doesn't happen by accident. Going as far back as the 1880s, Valois was encouraging tourism. People longed more for quiet environments and a place where they can spend their summers. And where else would they go but the beautiful shores of Valoisville? They called it Valoisville. Thus, the summer retreat movement of Pointe-Claire and Valois began.
People swam and sailed and paddled, and that's what it was all about. This was the Laurentians, today's Laurentian. That's what the lakeshore was. It was Montreal people came out to the lakeshore.
It eventually led to this, and this, and this. You've heard of this, the Maples Inn, built in the 18-somethings. But I'm not here to talk about the Maples Inn, because there was something more impressive happening in Valois. This is the Chateau St. Louis, built in 1907, a 3-story, 5-star, grandiose hotel, the biggest hotel on the shore of Lac St. Louis, equipped with 100 rooms. Each floor had a 3-foot by 14-foot veranda. It had hot and cold water on every floor, and each floor had plenty of bathrooms and private baths. There was a kitchen run by a French chef, tennis courts, a bowling alley, billiards, croquet. They had a massive hall with their own orchestra. They had their own boardwalk running from the Valois train station right to their hotel. They even had their own pier for yachting and cruising and sailing, and they commissioned their own steamboat. A steamboat. An actual steamboat. Oh boy! They had their own garage with their own gas supply, so you can gas up in your little Ford T and go back into the city if the train wasn't your thing. And all this, still 15 years before the country club was even built.
It was a nice place to live. The train brought you to Montreal and they brought you to the country, you know? It was country.
So by the end of World War I, a lot of the summer residents were becoming all-season residents. And then moving into the 20s, they had built about 50 new homes above the tracks, which would have been considered a boom in those days.
That was the big boom. When they built houses over there, the lakeshore took off.
So of course it makes sense why the country club was built there. This is where the people were. It was following the trend of this lavish golden age on the beautiful shores of Valois Bay. Now wouldn't it be great to experience it one last time after collecting all this information from the articles, from the pictures, from Bill? This is the Valois Country Club. But wait a minute, if this place was so great, why was there a last time? When was there a last time? Why does this place not still exist? There's no way that a legit scuba diver is gonna wanna go in Lac St. Louis in like 3 feet of water. Every major city around the world has had its golden age. Paris in the 1920s, New York in the somethings, Athens in the BC 300s and somethings. But for us here in Pointe-Claire, the real golden age was that era between the 1880s and the 1930s, when there was 5-star hotels and giant country clubs and beachfronts on Valois Bay. It was like the Hamptons of Montreal. Valoisville, the Hamptons of Montreal. Now with every golden age that has to come to an end, ours is a little different. You can go to Paris and still see the Eiffel Tower. You can go to New York and still see the Empire State Building. You can go to Athens and still see the Parthenon. What are you gonna see in Valois? The bowling alley? No offense to the bowling alley. It's just not a part of the golden age. Where is the evidence of the chateau or the country club or the beach or any of these attractions that brought people to Valois in the first place? If there'd be any remains of the country club, for example, they would be in the water, right? So let's go fishing. Are these stairs legit or what? Seems safe. This is Michelle. She's a good friend of mine and she's recently taken up a new hobby called magnet fishing. Totally legal. Where you toss a magnet into the waters, reel it in, and hope to pull something out. This is the shoreline.
Oh yeah, so close.
In the collection of articles that I have about Valois in those days, I started to notice articles reflecting on that time, indicating that there were things in the golden age that weren't so golden. For example, the glorious 5-star hotel at the Chateau St. Louis apparently was doing some illegal gambling. And there was a story of 2 teenagers who set off on canoes with $600 worth of goods and guns from the country club. Not so golden, is it?
Did people live here permanently, or was it still like a cottage country?
So this is when the shift away from the golden age started happening. The Valois tourists who had bought summer homes above the tracks began to winterize their homes, thus becoming Valois residents. So a town which once thrived on summer tourism had now slightly shifted towards being an actual small little town, Valois. From Valoisville to Valois. And I found some articles on how the residents, the permanent residents, were starting to get a little annoyed with the summer tourists coming in. Weekend visitors, cheap and noisy cars, cheaper and noisier gramophone records, their midnight jazz, and their Sabbath breaking. The first snow flurry will be hailed by some as being the great farewell to the summer residents. What a change. Is it feeling heavy?
Actually, no.
Now, the owner of the Chateau Saint Louis passed away in 1930, right around the same time as the stock market crash. This, combined with the decline of tourism and the lack of a successor, the hotel just couldn't bounce back and in 5 years closed indefinitely. And to top it all off, the planning of the new highway, the 20, what we know today as the 20 or the 2 or the 2 and 17 or the 2 and 20 or the Montreal to St. Anne's Boulevard Highway. It would create a huge divide between the residents and what was Valois' greatest attraction, its shoreline, its summer shoreline.
Not even a nail.
Not even a nail.
And when the war started, Valois lost a huge demographic of young men who were sent overseas. These were the young men who would have gone to the country club.
It's actually really a relaxing pastime.
Yeah, I'm relaxed.
Say that in a more animated way.
I'm relaxed. I can't say it more animated, I'm relaxed.
So there's no metal left over. We found nothing. But I'm still confident that there's something else down there. If you look on Google Maps, you can clearly see that there are shadows in the exact position where the country club was. I needed to find someone who can dive in there to see if there's anything left of the great Valois Country Club.
Loud and clear.
This is Josh. He's a legit professional scuba diver. Still legal, by the way. Everything we're doing is legal. What was your first impression? Do you remember?
It was kind of interesting. As soon as I heard about that, it just immediately caught my eye. I was like, well, why not? I got nothing to lose.
So by 1939, most of the highway was built, which is why in 1940, they tore down the Chateau Saint Louis, leaving the country club as the sole survivor of the Golden Age until there was a fire. Going from the shore all the way to the end, you did feel that there was a cement block the whole way down?
But they always say there's no straight lines in nature. I mean, it was a perfect wall. You can feel the cement blocks.
On the evening of November 5th, at 11:30 p.m., a fire struck the country club. Witnesses said that it started on the far end of the club, and within minutes, the fire had blazed through the entire club, crumbling right down into the cold waters of Lac Saint Louis.
By chance, just feeling around through the mud, that's when I found a glass and a couple bottles. It was what felt like, I still call them shingles. It felt like the roofing, whatever material would have been, just sheets and sheets and sheets of these shingles.
It was a windy night and the flames and embers started to fly over to the lakeshore, starting mini fires.
It's too perfectly placed, you know, and it's the right material, it's the right, just the size of it in comparison to the photos, it just makes sense.
The fact that this thing was down there for 78 years is insane. Now, the remains of the country club stayed in those waters for quite a long while, and if you're old enough to remember the time of the country club, you would have seen beams coming up from the water when the water was low. Even though today there's no real remnants of the Golden Age, the effect the Golden Age had on Valois and the West Island very much exists today. If there'd been no Golden Age, there would have been no population growth above the tracks, which means there would have been no purpose to build churches or schools, which means that the growth wouldn't have extended westward and eastward to build shopping centers and malls and indoor pools and more schools and libraries and city halls, essentially what the West Island is today. So all of this is because the Golden Age brought people into the West Island to see the beauty and potential that it would hold for the future. Valois is growing. Let us hope that it is growing good. Plenty of open spaces for the next generation, well planned, and all with an eye to the future. When we are gone, those that follow will read our record. Valois will still be here. We shall have passed. Maybe it be so. That was an article from 1925.